If Amber Guyger was trained not to shoot in the heart, my son would be standing here today.
He was no threat.
He was no threat to her. He had no reason to pose a threat to her because he was in his own apartment, in his sanctuary.
A heartbreaking reaction there from the mother of the dead man there in Dallas after former Dallas police officer Amber Guyger sentenced to 10 years in prison for killing her son inside of his own home. Guyger claims she mistook it for her apartment and thought he was an intruder. Bob Bianchi, former head New Jersey County prosecutor, now criminal defense attorney. Bob, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Been watching this case very carefully. Did the jury get it right?
I'll tell you what, there was a big debate in the legal community as to whether or not this should have been charged as a murder case, and there were interesting defenses in the case. But the fact of the matter was the judge allowed all those defenses to come in. The jury looked at it, and looked at it and said this was an actual murder. A lot of people thought it could have been an acquittal or a guilty verdict or something less like manslaughter. So it's very interesting in this case. This jury gave her the boatload as far as the highest charges and then went on the lower range of the sentencing.
You know, I've had so many people stop and ask me about this case. We've been covering it for so long. They say it's so confusing what happened, but she's a police officer, or was. She was fully dressed but off duty, walked into this apartment, as the defense makes the case, thinking it was her own, saw him in his apartment, rather, shot him thinking he was an intruder.
Right.
She's now going to jail for 10 years, up for probation in 5. Why is she serving that?
Okay, there were many people that were also debating the idea whether she should have been prosecuted because it was an accident, or what we call a mistake of fact in the law, and potential castle doctrine, which is self-defense in your home. I don't want to get too wonky with it. But the bottom line here is, while it's a tragic event, he was a beautiful guy. She thought she was in her apartment. She thought there was an intruder. If in fact that was true, she would have been reasonable in using the deadly force. The only problem was she made a mistake thinking she was in the wrong apartment and was in the wrong apartment.
And now to have this turn into an amazing story of forgiveness with Botham Jean's brother asking to get up and hug her in the courtroom. What were you thinking when you saw that?
Sandra, I prosecuted many homicide cases to successful conclusion. I have never ever seen somebody ask that, a judge granted, goes up and gives an elongated hug, both of them very emotional, ask for forgiveness, and then to add on top of that, a judge who comes off the bench, hugs the family, and hands the defendant a Bible. These are something I've never seen in a courtroom.
Didn't know it was allowed either.
Well, I guess the judge, I've never seen it. The judge doing it with the Bible was one thing, but my initial thought was, although it was a beautiful hug and a beautiful gesture by the brother, you really don't know what the intentions are of a person like that or what the emotional reaction could be. And I'm sure the sheriff's officers were going, yikes, man, I don't want these people having contact with one another.
He asked the judge for permission.
He asked, after a very heart and passionate thing, I don't want you to rot in hell. I forgive you. Give your life to Jesus Christ. And then very innocently,
this is what his brother would have wanted, he said.
This is what my brother would have wanted. And then he just turned to the judge and said, can I give her a hug? And then there was like a 10-second pause, because this is something that the judge, I'm sure, has never confronted either, and said yes. And it was beautiful.
Bob Bianchi, thank you.
You got it.